Hi, I'm Rob, welcome to the honest-wargamer, and today we're going to be doing a rundown on Kavalos Deathriders for the OC Bone Reapers. Ba-da-ba-ba-bam. As you know, the souls that the OC Bone Reapers take from their enemies are used to construct the other OC Bone Reapers. Soul Masons will use them to construct all sorts of things, and the Kavalos Deathriders are one of them. Now, normally, they use the souls of feral beasts, animals, beetles, bleak lake crocodiles, cart horses, cart horses, and a flightless bird known as the Diartree. Anyway, this amalgamation of animal souls is like smashed together, and that forms the horse or the kind of mount that the Deathriders ride upon. Now, an interesting thing about these souls, sometimes someone will annoy Nagash so much that their soul will be condensed down and put inside one of these horses, and because it's still semi-sentient, goes mad knowing that it's part of a beast of burden and not a warrior that rides on top. I mean, I get Ubers places sometimes. I don't think those guys are that mad, but then I guess they can get out of the Uber. Anyway, the warriors on top are used to ride down their foe, obviously, but they're not the same as human cavalry or maybe some other cavalry that we can think of. They are lockstep. So much so, and their grace is so high that they're able to just move like a school of fish. The hecatos that leads them turns and they all move, which is exactly what you need from a cavalry formation. They need to be fast and need to respond very, very quickly. As much as they might look like skeletons, they aren't. They're obviously constructs shaped from bone. So they're able to perform feats of physical endurance, which we don't expect from a normal horse, and especially a deconstructed skeletal horse. They're not as much the kind of like ragtag undeath that we think of. They are armored in bone. So much so that it even describes examples of hitting them with your sword and your sword arm going numb, and not a scratch is left on the mount. The riders also take intensely good care of their mounts. Whenever they're finished in battle and they're able to get back to an OC stronghold, they clean them up as fresh as if they'd just been bone-shaped. This is for two different reasons. One, for pride. The OC are definitely prideful as a group. And it's also to allow the energy from the skulls trapped inside to leak out. So they'll get the horses back, they'll give them a polish, they'll give them a clean up, and they'll stand around looking as neat and as clean as the day they were made, I guess. Now, obviously, they perform the same role inside the army as do all cavalry. But unlike other cavalry, they don't need feeding and watering. They're able to hunt down the enemy like the exhaustion predators human beings once were. Overall, I think they're a pretty cool take on the cavalry theme, especially the undead cavalry theme. I would like to see something a little bit more robust than a horse. However, this is the first wave, so maybe we might see a new set of mounted OC in the future. Looking at the models, you can definitely see all the different souls that get put into, especially the animal souls that get put into the different mounts. Now, the OC on top look pretty much like the OC Mortek Guard, really. They have an avian head and also a rhino head, and you can definitely see the well-armoured and well-structured bodies that they take. The armor plates are very interesting, considering the bone armor, or like the actual construct, surely should be tough enough. It's interesting that there's another, even more armored version on top of their bone armor. Overall, I'm a big fan of the spears. I think they look pretty rad. And all in all, they're a pretty good cavalry-looking unit. I think as a baseline unit for the OC Bone Reapers, I think they're fantastic. And I can definitely see myself picking some up. If you have any painted versions of these guys, I would love to see them. Leave them in the comments below, or send us a tweet or a link, or message us on Instagram. Let's start off with one of the most important pieces of information. They can be battle line. And this is cool because you got a choice now between Mortek Guard and Kavalos Deathriders. I think you'd be hard pressed to not take the Mortek Guard in lots of instances. However, I really like these guys, the Kavalos Deathriders, and I've played a few practice games. There's a lot more to them than you might necessarily think when just looking at the War Scroll. So let's have a look at it. They've got 3 wounds each, they've got a 4-up save, but they move 12 inches. And that's a great start. They're bravery 10, but that doesn't matter, because in an OC Bone Reaper army, they're immune to battle shock. You can have units from 5 to 15. The rider can be equipped with either a blade or a spear. And I'm going to argue for always spears, which is the exact opposite of what I'd say about the Mortek Guard. They both got 3 attacks each. They both hit on 3s and they both wound on 4s. However, the blade has got rend 1 and they both do 1 damage. The spear has got a range of 2 inches over the 1 inch for the blade. The steeds, however, hit on 4s and they wound on 3s with 2 attacks each. They don't have any rend and they only do 1 damage. But wounding on 3s is a bit better than we see for most cavalry units. 1 in 5 of the models can be a Necrophos, and that gives you +1 to run and charge. 1 in 5 models can be a Mortek Hekatos, and they can have +1 attack to either a spear or their Netherite weapon. Talking about the Netherite weapons, they've got the ability to, as always, explode, so they'll generate 2 hits for every 6 to hit that they roll, unless you take the spears. And the spears, and this is why I advocate for the spears, they'll generate 2 extra hits on every 5+. Now, as we know, there's a spell from the spell lore that is going to allow that to be a 4+. So a unit of 5 with spears is going to have 16 attacks, and half of them on the charge are going to explode and do 2 hits. That's just really, really good. And if you took Catacros as well, you could have +1 to hit on those. So then you can also have reroll 1s to hit. You could be hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, and every 4+ to hit is going to be generating 2 wound dice. Your big issue, though, is you're wounding on 4s. In this situation, I just hope you roll well. In that situation, you just got to roll really well. But it's going to give you more dice to roll well with. The command ability, Deathrider Wedge, is really cool. It allows you to do mortal wounds on a charge. You roll a dice for every model in the unit that you're charging with, and on a 5+, it will do a mortal wound. It also allows you to pile in an extra 3 inches. Now, these models don't fly, thankfully, otherwise they'd be maybe too good, but they can charge quite far or further than your opponent might think. And this is really good for the classic handbrake. You charge, you get the first model within half an inch of a unit that you're charging. The rest can go wherever you'd like to string them out to. And then when you pile in, and you pile in 6, you're going to be able to get close enough to hit things like, I don't know, a Keeper of Secrets. So ways to make this unit better are, you could obviously use the command ability Endless Duty, which is going to give you +1 attack to all of those models. The reason I think this is particularly good on Deathriders, obviously, it's going to affect the mount and the rider. If you take them as Mortars Praetorians, you can obviously take Catacros as well. If he's your general, he'll be able to use his command ability, and he's going to give you +1 save and +1 to hit. So 3+ save on those 15 wounds with +1 to hit on their attacks that already hit on 3s. The problem is I always think Catacross is too much of a point sink, and I think I'd like to have more bodies on the board. The 2 spells that I think are very useful for this unit are Empower Netherite Weapons, which is going to be cast on a 5 and it allows you to generate extra hits on a 5, but if you've got the spears, it's going to be 4s. I also really want to cast Reinforced Battle Shields, and that will give you a 5+ DPR, so a damage prevention roll, against mortal wounds. So you can take different legions, and the 3 that I really like are the Mortis Praetorians with Catacros. The Petrifex Elite is probably the go-to. That gives you +1 save. So that battle line unit with 15 wounds is going to have a 3+ save, movement 12. Just brilliant. It's just really, really good. And also the command ability is where it gets really good. So the command ability Bludgeon is going to give you +1 rend, or rend that you need on those spears. And so I just don't know why you wouldn't take the Petrifex Elite. Now, of course, there is a horse one, the Staliac Lords. So their legion ability is the Equa Mortai, which means you can run and still charge. And their command ability is Rally Back, so you're going to be able to retreat and charge, and then also add a run. So these guys are going to be going really, really fast. Not forgetting the innate command ability that the OCR Bone Reapers have, where you can pick a unit and add +3 inches to its movement. Now, there's also a War Scroll battalion that absolutely benefits these guys, the Kavalos Lance. And this is a Liege Kavalos and 2 units of Deathriders. Those are the requirements. This is going to allow you to retreat and still charge as long as you're wholly within 12 inches of the Liege Kavalos from the same battalion. And once per turn, use the Deathrider Wedge command ability found on their War Scroll for free. Overall, I think you're going to see quite a few Deathrider units on the tabletop. Number 1, they look cool. But number 2, they do a lot of things which the Mortek Guard don't do. They're also competing with mobility with the Morghast Archai, and they're just a little bit more reliable. I really do like them, and in my practice games, I've enjoyed them on the tabletop. They've been great for holding objectives, and they hold longer than you might think. When you factor in that they're also battle line, honestly, they really, really do stand out. You obviously could build a big wedge of 15, give them all the buffs and send them forward. But I think units of 5 and maybe one big hammer of 10 might have great impact in the game. I've written a list, including this unit, on the Honest Wargamer website. You'll see it in the show notes below. I'd love you to comment on it and tell me what you think. Also, let me know if you're going to take them in games in the future. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you to everyone on our Patreon. You guys are fantastic. And thanks for supporting the show. And thanks for being an honest wargamer.